September 1943. A young American sailor stranded in Nazi-occupied Italy faced certain capture or death. His fate rested on the courage of a stranger, an Italian civilian whose selfless act would forge an unbreakable bond. This hidden chapter of war would echo for decades, culminating in an unexpected legacy of hope. To understand how it happened, we must go back to the tumultuous autumn of 1943. The Allied invasion of Italy, codenamed Operation Avalanche, had begun in September, pushing northward from the beaches of Salerno. This offensive marked a pivotal moment as Italy, previously an Axis power, signed an armistice with the Allies on September 8th. This sudden and dramatic shift plunged the nation into immediate chaos. German forces, anticipating this betrayal, swiftly moved to occupy central and northern Italy, disarming their former allies and establishing a brutal and oppressive occupation regime. The country became a battleground, divided by the formidable German-built Gothic Line, a series of defensive fortifications stretching across the peninsula. For Allied soldiers, particularly those separated from their units during the rapid advance or escaping prisoner-of-war camps, the landscape was fraught with peril. Capture meant harsh treatment, often forced labor, internment in concentration camps, or worse. For Italian civilians, aiding an Allied soldier was an act of extreme bravery, punishable by imprisonment, torture, or execution, not only for the individual, but often for their entire family or village. Yet in this crucible of fear, uncertainty, and profound moral challenge, countless acts of quiet heroism unfolded, forging unexpected bonds across enemy lines, demonstrating the enduring power of human compassion in the face of tyranny. In this volatile and dangerous environment, an American sailor found himself isolated, vulnerable, and utterly alone. His ship, a destroyer part of an Allied convoy navigating the treacherous waters of the Mediterranean, had been struck by a German U-boat torpedo during a fierce night attack off the Italian coast. The explosion ripped through the vessel's hull with a deafening roar, sending men and debris into the cold, dark sea. Amidst the chaos, the desperate struggle for survival, and the chilling cries of his comrades, he managed to cling to a piece of wreckage, a splintered section of the ship's superstructure. He drifted for what felt like an eternity, battling hypothermia and exhaustion, before finally washing ashore on the rugged Italian coastline, far behind enemy lines. Injured, disoriented, and utterly alone, he knew that every shadow could conceal a German patrol, every distant sound a potential threat. His uniform, now tattered and soaked, was a stark indicator of his allegiance, making him an immediate and unmistakable target. He moved cautiously, driven by a primal instinct for survival, his body aching from the impact and the cold, his mind racing with the grim reality of his situation. The Italian countryside, beautiful yet menacing, with its rolling hills and ancient villages, offered little comfort. He desperately needed shelter, food, and above all, a way to evade the relentless German hunt that he knew would soon begin. His very existence depended on finding a safe haven, a needle in the vast haystack of an occupied nation. This was Frank Bender, a 20-year-old seaman from a quiet farming town in Iowa. Before the war, Frank had been a diligent student, known for his steady hands, his thoughtful demeanor, and an innate curiosity about the world beyond his rural upbringing. He had enlisted in the Navy shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor, driven by a deep sense of duty and a desire to contribute to the war effort, a sentiment shared by millions of young Americans. His family, a close-knit unit rooted in the values of hard work and community, had seen him off with a mixture of immense pride and profound apprehension, understanding the gravity of the path he had chosen. Frank was not a man of grand pronouncements or flamboyant gestures, but his resolve was firm, his character shaped by the resilience and quiet strength of the American heartland. He possessed an inner fortitude that would soon be tested to its absolute limits. Now stripped of the protection of his uniform and the camaraderie of his crew, he was reduced to a primal struggle for existence, relying solely on his wits, his training, and the faint, flickering hope of human kindness in a land occupied by the enemy. Every step was a gamble, every decision a matter of life and death. Frank Bender's life before the war had been one of quiet purpose, rooted deeply in the fertile soil of rural Iowa. Born in 1923, he was the eldest of 3 children, growing up on a modest farm that had been in his family for generations. His days were filled with the predictable yet demanding rhythms of agricultural life, planting in spring, tending crops through the long hot summer, and harvesting in the autumn. He learned early the value of hard work, the importance of perseverance in the face of unpredictable weather, and the necessity of community cooperation. His father, a man of few words but immense integrity, taught him to respect the land, to understand the intricate workings of machinery, and to always lend a hand to a neighbor in need. His mother, a nurturing and resourceful woman, instilled in him a love for learning, a strong moral compass, and a deep appreciation for the simple joys of life. Frank excelled in school, particularly in subjects that required practical application, like mathematics, mechanics, and engineering. He harbored dreams of one day designing efficient farm machinery, a way to combine his passion for innovation with his loyalty to his family's legacy and the betterment of his community. When the war broke out, those dreams were, like so many others, put on hold. The call to serve was undeniable, a collective surge of patriotism that swept across the nation. Frank, with his strong build, keen intellect, and sense of responsibility, felt compelled to join the fight. He chose the Navy, drawn by the allure of the open sea, and the opportunity to apply his mechanical aptitude to the complex machinery of naval vessels. His training was rigorous, transforming the farm boy into a disciplined sailor, proficient in engine maintenance, navigation, and ship operations. He left Iowa with a heartfelt promise to return, his heart heavy but his spirit resolute, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. His early experiences in the Navy were a whirlwind of new sights and sounds, a stark contrast to the familiar tranquility of his hometown. He served on a destroyer, a fast and agile warship, tasked with the critical mission of escorting convoys and hunting submarines in the perilous waters of the Atlantic. He witnessed the brutal realities of naval warfare firsthand, the constant, nerve-wracking vigilance against unseen threats lurking beneath the waves, the bone-jarring concussions of depth charges exploding in the dark ocean, and the harrowing sight of torpedoed merchant ships sinking rapidly into the icy depths, often taking their crews with them. He developed a profound respect for the unforgiving power of the sea and an unwavering loyalty to his shipmates, a bond forged in shared danger. His destroyer was later transferred to the Mediterranean theater, supporting the crucial Allied invasion of North Africa and Sicily. The stakes were higher, the battles more intense, and the enemy more desperate. He participated in several tense engagements, his role in the engine room critical to keeping the ship operational under fire, ensuring power and propulsion in the midst of chaos. Each mission honed his skills and hardened his resolve, but also deepened his understanding of the immense human cost of war, the sacrifices made, and the lives irrevocably altered. He saw friends wounded, ships lost, and the ever-present shadow of death. It was during one such convoy mission, tasked with resupplying Allied forces pushing into Italy, that disaster struck. A German U-boat, lurking stealthily beneath the waves, launched a devastating attack. The torpedo hit with brutal force, tearing a gaping hole in the destroyer's hull. Frank, thrown violently by the explosion, fought his way through smoke, fire, and rapidly rising water, scrambling onto the deck as the ship began its rapid descent into the abyss. He plunged into the oil-slicked sea, the screams of his comrades echoing around him, and clung desperately to a piece of floating wreckage, the last vestige of his shattered world. Days blurred into a desperate struggle against the elements and the constant threat of discovery. Frank, weakened by his injuries, the shock of the shipwreck, and prolonged exposure to the cold sea and harsh land, stumbled through the Italian countryside. He sought refuge in abandoned farmhouses, dense thickets, and remote caves, always moving under the cover of darkness. He survived on meager scraps, wild berries, roots, and whatever he could forage, his hope dwindling with each passing hour, replaced by a gnawing fear. One evening, as dusk settled over a small, secluded village nestled in a hidden valley, he collapsed near a weathered stone wall, his strength finally giving out, his body unable to take another step. He awoke to the gentle touch of a hand, and the soft murmur of a foreign tongue, a language he didn't understand, but whose tone conveyed concern. Standing over him was an older Italian man, his face etched with the lines of hard work and a profound concern in his eyes. The man, seeing Frank's tattered uniform, his gaunt face, and the desperation in his eyes, made a swift, silent decision. He extended a hand, a gesture of profound courage and compassion that transcended the language barrier and the brutal realities of war. Frank, wary but utterly spent, took the offered hand, placing his trust in a complete stranger, a leap of faith born of absolute necessity. This was Antonio Rossi, a man whose quiet bravery would forever alter the course of Frank's life, intertwining their destinies in an unforeseen way. Antonio Rossi, a farmer in his late 50s, lived with his wife Sofia and their 2 teenage children, Marco and Elena, in a small, isolated village nestled deep in the hills of Tuscany. Their lives, like those of countless other Italians, had been upended by the war. Food was scarce, German patrols were frequent and unpredictable, and the constant suffocating fear of reprisal hung heavy in the air. The decision to help an Allied soldier was not taken lightly. It was a choice fraught with immense life-threatening danger. Antonio knew that harboring an enemy combatant, especially an American, could mean the death of his entire family, the destruction of his home, and the devastation of his village. German forces were ruthless in their suppression of any perceived resistance, and fascist collaborators were eager to report suspicious activities, often for meager rewards or out of ideological zeal. The language barrier was another immediate challenge. Frank spoke no Italian, and Antonio's English was limited to a few basic phrases learned from occasional interactions with tourists before the war. Yet, as Antonio looked into Frank's exhausted, pleading eyes, he saw not an enemy, but a fellow human being in desperate need, a young man who could have been his own son. His moral compass, forged by generations of rural Italian hospitality, a deep-seated sense of human dignity, and a profound opposition to the brutality of the Nazi occupation, compelled him to act. He could not, in good conscience, turn away from a soul in such dire straits. Antonio's internal struggle was brief but intensely profound. He remembered the chilling stories of German atrocities, the summary executions of suspected partisans, the collective punishments inflicted on villages suspected of aiding the resistance. He knew the risks were immense, almost suicidal, but he also remembered his own father's words, passed down through generations. True strength is found not in weapons, but in compassion. A man who turns his back on another in need loses a piece of his own soul. This ancient wisdom resonated deeply within him. He brought Frank back to his humble farmhouse under the cover of darkness, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and unwavering conviction. His wife, Sofia, initially gasped at the sight of the American sailor, her face paling with apprehension, her hands instinctively going to her mouth. But after Antonio explained the situation in hushed, urgent tones, her fear slowly gave way to a quiet, steely determination. Their children, Marco and Elena, were sworn to absolute secrecy, understanding the gravity of the situation with a maturity far beyond their years. Frank, observing the family's hushed conversations, their cautious movements, and the palpable tension in the air, understood the immense risk they were taking on his behalf. He felt a surge of overwhelming gratitude, a profound sense of indebtedness to these strangers who had chosen humanity over fear, courage over self-preservation. He was vulnerable, completely at their mercy, and yet, in their eyes, he saw a genuine kindness and unwavering resolve that transcended the conflict raging around them. This shared moment of silent understanding, this unspoken pact of trust and sacrifice, marked the true beginning of their extraordinary and enduring bond. For the next several months, Frank's existence was a delicate dance of concealment and quiet integration into the Rossi family's life. His primary hiding place was a small dusty cellar beneath the farmhouse, its entrance cleverly disguised beneath a carefully arranged pile of firewood and old tools. During the day, he remained hidden, listening intently to the sounds of daily life above him. The clatter of pots, the murmur of voices, the distant rumble of German trucks on the main road, the chatter of villagers in the piazza. At night, under the cloak of darkness, He would emerge cautiously to share meager meals with the family, often consisting of simple bread, cheese, and vegetables from their garden. Sophia, with her gentle hands and maternal warmth, tended to his wounds, applying traditional herbal remedies and comforting him with quiet reassurances. Antonio, through gestures, a few shared words, and immense patience, began to teach Frank basic Italian phrases, while Frank, in turn, taught them rudimentary English. They communicated through a patchwork of broken phrases, hand signals, and shared glances, a language of necessity, empathy, and growing affection. Moments of sheer terror were frequent and unpredictable. German patrols would often sweep through the village, searching for partisans, escaped Allied soldiers, or hidden supplies. During these tense periods, Frank would quickly retreat to his hiding place, his heart pounding, as the heavy boots of soldiers echoed ominously above him. The Rossi family would maintain a facade of normalcy, their faces betraying nothing of the dangerous secret they harbored. One particularly harrowing incident involved a German officer demanding to inspect their cellar for hidden supplies. Antonio, with remarkable composure and a feigned exasperation, led the officer through the house, casually mentioning that the cellar was unfortunately full of spoiled wine, its fumes unbearable and its contents worthless. The officer, disgusted by the thought of rancid wine, waved him off with a dismissive gesture, unknowingly passing within feet of Frank's concealed refuge. These shared dangers, these moments of collective breath-holding, solidified their bond, transforming fear into a deep, unspoken trust and an unbreakable loyalty. As the Allied forces pushed further north through the rugged Italian terrain, the sounds of distant artillery grew louder and more frequent, a beacon of hope for Frank and the Rossi family. The day finally came when Antonio, his eyes shining with a mixture of immense relief and profound sadness, informed Frank that American troops were now very close, just a few kilometers away. A plan was devised for Frank to rendezvous with an advancing reconnaissance unit under the cover of night. The farewell was bittersweet, filled with unspoken emotions. Frank, now stronger, healthier, and more fluent in Italian, embraced each member of the Rossi family, Antonio, Sophia, Marco, and Elena, his heart overflowing with gratitude that words could barely express. He promised Antonio with solemn sincerity that he would never forget their incredible kindness, that he would return one day to repay their immense debt, a debt of life itself. Antonio, his voice thick with emotion, simply said, "Go, Frank. Live, and remember us. That is all we ask." With a final lingering look at the family who had risked everything for him, who had become his second family, Frank slipped away into the night, guided by Antonio's precise directions, carrying with him not just the memory of survival, but the profound and life-altering impact of their selfless love and courage. He walked towards the sounds of freedom, forever bound to the quiet heroism of the Rossi family. Frank Bender returned to American soil, a profoundly changed man. The war had etched itself onto his soul, leaving indelible marks of trauma and loss, but so too had the extraordinary kindness and courage of the Rossi family. He completed his service, honorably discharged, and returned to Iowa, where he was greeted as a hero, a survivor. Yet the quiet farm boy who had left years ago was now a man profoundly shaped by the horrors of war and the extraordinary humanity he had encountered in the most unexpected of places. He pursued his pre-war dreams with renewed vigor, studying engineering and eventually establishing a highly successful business, designing and manufacturing innovative agricultural equipment, contributing to the post-war boom. He married, started a family, and built a comfortable, prosperous life, a testament to the opportunities afforded by peace. But the promise he had made to Antonio, to never forget and to return, weighed heavily on his heart, a sacred vow that transcended time and distance. For 30 long years, Frank searched relentlessly. The post-war landscape of Italy was fragmented, records were scarce, and communication was difficult, often hampered by bureaucratic obstacles and the lingering effects of conflict. He wrote countless letters, contacted veterans organizations, sought assistance from government agencies, and even hired private investigators. But Antonio Rossi, the quiet farmer from a small Tuscan village, remained elusive, a ghost from a past that refused to be forgotten. The vivid memory of the family who had saved him, their faces, their courage, their shared meals, the constant fear they endured, never faded. It became a driving force in his life, a testament to the enduring power of human connection amidst the darkest of times, a constant reminder of the debt he felt he owed. The search, spanning 3 agonizing decades, was a testament to Frank's unwavering commitment and profound sense of gratitude. He never gave up hope, believing with every fiber of his being that one day he would find the family who had given him a second chance at life, a chance to rebuild and thrive. In the late 1970s, a breakthrough finally came almost by chance. Through a serendipitous encounter with a retired Italian-American soldier who had served in the same region of Tuscany during the war, Frank learned of a small, isolated village that matched his fragmented memories and descriptions. With renewed determination and a heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, he traveled back to Italy, a journey that felt like stepping back in time. He arrived in the village, a place that felt both eerily familiar and subtly foreign, and cautiously inquired about the Rossi family. To his immense relief and overwhelming joy, he found them. Antonio, now an elderly man, his face more weathered by time, but his eyes still holding the same quiet strength and kindness Frank remembered, was still living in the same humble farmhouse. The reunion was deeply emotional, a flood of tears, heartfelt embraces, and choked-up words that transcended the years and the initial language barrier. Frank, now fluent in Italian from his years of dedicated study, was finally able to express the depth of his gratitude, to thank Antonio and Sofia for their incredible courage and life-saving sacrifice. They spoke for hours, recounting their experiences, filling in the gaps of 3 decades, sharing stories of their lives, their losses, and their enduring hopes. It was during these profound conversations that they realized a shared purpose: to give back, to build something lasting and meaningful from the ashes of war and the strength of their extraordinary friendship. Inspired by their reunion and the profound impact their wartime experience had on both their lives, Frank and Antonio decided to embark on a joint project, a living legacy. They recognized that the war had left deep and lasting scars on their communities, particularly in terms of education, economic opportunity, and social infrastructure. Antonio, having witnessed firsthand the struggles of local youth in the post-war economy, expressed a heartfelt desire to provide better prospects and a brighter future for the next generation. Frank, remembering his own humble beginnings on an Iowa farm and the transformative value of practical skills, saw an opportunity to empower young people through vocational training, equipping them with the tools to rebuild their lives and their nation. Together, they established a foundation, pooling Frank's substantial financial resources and Antonio's deep understanding of local needs and community dynamics. With this powerful partnership, they opened a series of vocational schools strategically located throughout the Tuscan region. These schools offered comprehensive training in essential trades like carpentry, mechanics, agriculture, and textile production, providing young Italians with the tangible skills needed to secure employment, foster entrepreneurship, and contribute meaningfully to the economic recovery of their communities. They also established innovative language exchange programs, fostering cultural understanding and bridging the very divides that had once separated their nations. Their initiative quickly became a beacon of hope, transforming the lives of hundreds of students and strengthening the social and economic fabric of the entire region, proving that even after immense destruction, growth and progress were possible. The legacy of Frank Bender and Antonio Rossi is not merely one of wartime survival, but of profound human connection, unwavering courage, and enduring hope. Their extraordinary story reminds us that even in the darkest hours of conflict, acts of selfless bravery can forge bonds that transcend nationality, language, and circumstance. It is a powerful testament to the idea that true heroism often lies not in grand battles or military victories, but in quiet acts of compassion, in the willingness to risk everything for a stranger, in the simple yet profound choice to extend a hand in humanity. Their decision to open schools, decades after their initial life-altering encounter, transformed a personal debt of gratitude into a collective investment in the future, a tangible expression of their shared values. It demonstrated unequivocally that the human spirit, when tempered by suffering and ignited by a shared vision for a better world, possesses an extraordinary and boundless capacity for healing, reconciliation, and creation. Their friendship, born from the crucible of war and nurtured across continents and decades, became a powerful symbol of reconciliation between former adversaries and the enduring power of education to build a better world, one student, one skill, one dream at a time. Their story is a timeless reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple through generations, shaping history in ways far beyond the battlefield.